Hi, this is JP Morgan. Today on the Slanted Lands, we're going to interview a photographer, Erik Valind from New York City. I want to understand how he got into photography. I want to see what makes his work tick, how he creates it. I want to get some business tips from him. Most importantly, we want to see what gives him the passion and make him do what he does each day. So let's get started and see what we can do. Everyone starts an interview with these questions, so I'm going to do it just to lay the foundation so people understand. How did you get started in photography? Tell us your name, how you got started in New York, and what your background is.
Okay, yeah, so I didn't start in New York, that's for sure. I started in the complete opposite of that. I'm from the beaches of Florida, so I grew up on the water. I was swimming before I could actually walk because my mom was a swim teacher and then a nurse at night. So yeah, I'm about as aquatic and beach life as you can get. Complete opposite of where I am today.
Yeah, now you're in New York City?
Right, yeah, jonesing for a beach all the time, yeah. So I started out, just shooting for fun. My grandfather was a commercial photographer in Wisconsin, so I just always had this acceptance in the back of my mind. Photography was like any other profession. It wasn't like, oh man, you're dreaming too big if you want to be an artist for a living, He raised a family of 5 with it, which was cool. Yeah. And then on top of that, there were always cameras accessible. So I was always on the water, surfing, skiing, doing dumb things with friends, and eventually I started documenting that because when you'd go home at the end of the day or you wanted to share an experience, it was one thing to tell people about it, but it was another thing to be like, check this out, look at this, like we jumped off this, or we rode that wave, or it was always about sharing an experience. So it was never intended to be a job at first, but it was not too far-fetched to think it could be one day. So it was kind of a neat combination.
Well, I ask people that question all the time. So what did your family think when you made that decision? So it sounds like it's part of the culture, but what did your family think when you decided?
Okay, so they're as supportive as parents can be, like they're always gonna put your crappy photo on the fridge, that kind of thing, but at the same time, they're also very pragmatic about it. They're like, okay, you're intelligent, you went to college, you did all these things, and now you want to be a photographer? So there was a question mark at the end of it, for sure.
So brain surgeons off the list? Is it?
Yeah, they're like, we saw you as an architect, not so much a photographer, yeah. So it was a little bit of a hard sell, but as soon as they saw they always saw my passion of it, but as soon as they saw that I was actually working towards it, and I went to school for business, so they knew I had the mindset and a little bit of the background to be able to be successful at it, then they started being more supportive of it, yeah.
So where does that photographic training come from? You went to school in business, so where does that photographic training come from?
Oh my God, being very stubborn. So I'm completely self-taught, and it's all trial and error. So I remember when I was teaching myself portrait photography, or specifically studio photography. I had an apartment in Orlando, and I bought white seamless paper, and I borrowed an old Novotron Speedotron pack or something like that from a friend. Speedotron, yeah. And it was old and would arc all the time and spark and fill my living room with smoke, and it didn't matter because I was just trying to figure out how to get the shots I'd seen on magazine covers or what I could do with it. So moving it around, I would throw all my friends and family, list of ex-girlfriends who have, sat through me for way too many portrait sessions to try to figure it out. So yeah, it's really, because of all the people that let me photograph them, and because I was just too stubborn and also very technically curious to try to figure something out. So first it was about sharing memories, and then the professional proficiency came in wanting to wrap my head around it,
So is there a time you can identify where you said all of a sudden, okay, I'm going to be a photographer? Or was it just a gradual process, or was it, you went to college for business, so obviously you weren't thinking, I'm going to be a photographer.
Yeah, it was very gradual. And then after college I realized I don't really want to do anything else, at that point. So I had been shooting through college. I started out with event photography, got a little bit into commercial photography through some of the companies I'd worked with, promotional companies and things. And then I did, like every photographer starting out, took a couple weddings, and then I shot a lot of weddings, and then I actually started editing weddings for people. So I've shot a lot of stuff, a little bit of reported stuff, a little bit of like journalism kind of stuff, editing weddings, commercial, event, all of it, to find what I really wanted to do down the road.
So how do you arrive at your style today? Tell us your style. Give us an understanding of kind of where Erik is at today.
Okay, stylistically, it's going to be a mix of genuine moments and people actively loving what they're doing, but this also going to be very selectively composed and then dialed in. And then I use my lighting experience and knowledge in that to kind of make it have that professional polish. So it looks like you walked into this beautiful moment, except man, is it clean and well composed and perfectly lit and saturated, and So I try to get that authenticity with that polish at the same time. and that's kind of where that's me. Yeah.
So if you were to categorize yourself, which everyone hates to do, I mean, what are the things you would say are your specialty?
Okay, people. I'm a lifestyle photographer, so whether that is an athlete or someone doing something active or rock climbing, or I photograph a lot of musicians and artists too for different clients. So I have to walk in and be just as excited about someone who's excited about knitting as I am excited about, a Grammy-winning musician and he's excited about his music, or someone who's just excited about running every day and can't quit, So yeah, it's that shared excitement in people's lifestyles. So I'm definitely a people lifestyle photographer.
Well, I think the passion for the image and the person brings that out regardless of who you're photographing. It's part of the process. It brings you closer to that experience. It makes that experience really rich. So
yeah.
So did you have a mentor, someone that you look to, or maybe from a distance, photographers? Who kind of paved the way for you?
Now, you know what? Whenever I get asked this question, I wish I had a good answer. I want to be like, Ansel Adams made me a photographer who I am today, or something like that. No, in Florida, it was really a weird transition. I came up into photography when we were transitioning to digital. Jobs were getting scarce. Professional photographers were very close to their chest about how they did things and who their clients were. It was really kind of difficult to go from someone who has a passion for taking pictures to someone who's technically curious and stubborn enough to learn and teach themselves how to do it to someone who wanted to be a full-time shooter, because there was things that were difficult to learn yourself and could only do through trial and error because I didn't have a mentor or anyone to teach me. I joined ASMP, which is a photo organization.
It's a great organization.
Yeah. I'm still super active and supportive and have been a member of chapters throughout the U.S. because I do believe that they do an awesome job about industry standards and helping each other out and just looking out for photographers. I definitely, if you want to talk about that later, for sure. Yeah. But one of the things I did is I joined an ASMP chapter, and I was in an issue with dealing with usage rights and things for one of the first times, and had zero knowledge of this, didn't know who to talk to about it. So I joined this organization and just ended up dialing everyone on the list. Introduced myself. This is where I'm at. Could you help me? Or do you want to meet for a coffee? So one guy finally bit, and gave me a little bit of guidance. And then right after that was super skeptical and curious about how these people were even contacting me to license a photo. So I didn't grow up in this big learning, sharing community that we know of as photography today. It was quite the opposite. People looked at me and they're like, wow, this guy looks hungry and has okay work. We don't want to have anything to do with that. Exactly. So it was rough. So yeah, it would have been nice to have a mentor, but just the time it was and the area that I was, and I wasn't involved in any photo communities at the time. It was just, it was a silo. It was incredible that I made it out of there. I guess a lot of people would have given up, but it's something I'd always done and was passionate about. So I'm fortunate that career progressed. Yeah.
So I'd like to delve into your style a little more. And in this section, it's really important for me and for our listeners to understand kind of how you get to where you go. And I know it's hard for creatives a lot of times to identify that journey, but let's try to break that down a little bit. When you have an image that you want to take, what's your process? Or maybe you don't even know what image. What's the process for you? Is it just I grab my equipment and I run? Or is it, I see this shot, I got to get this, what's your process?
So yeah, when I go into a shoot, most of my work's location-based. So I have to have an idea of an image ahead of time because that's why I picked the spot. So in that case, I might have an idea of, the sun's going to be at a certain position, so I'm going to want to get the sun flare over the shoulder, and then that informs my equipment decisions. Do I need to bring light or reflectors to fill my subject in, and that kind of stuff. So it's not, the photos in the end are very serendipitous, but I do have a process and an idea of kind of like an anchor image that I go out to achieve. And then after that, I'll mix up techniques or lenses or vantage points or activities to get and have that flow that creates things that are unexpected. But I always go in with some kind of hard image in mind that I want to achieve and then build or change around.
So what generally is your first decision? Is it the location?
Yes. So environmental portraiture, whether it's just someone in their studio or a musician somewhere or an athlete somewhere, it's always going to be location-based or location-driven for the most part. Okay. And I grew up in Florida where it was sunny 360 a year, and I was inspired to go and photograph people, usually friends, that were doing things in beautiful locations. It was just very fortunate, but it informed my whole style as far as photography goes.
So talk about that journey as you're working with them. Do you get crazy? Or is it more calm? And
it depends on the people. So I'm very much a people person, and I like to try to put people at ease and make them comfortable, and that means I have to be adaptable on the other end of the camera. But my big thing in life is energy creates energy, and I like to bring that to set and influence the energy and mood on set by always bringing positivity and me. Even if I'm dragging that day, I'll have a couple extra coffees just to make sure that, you know, I'm there. Because it could be a long day, it could be hard to get the shot, it could be cold, you know, and if I'm behind the camera and I'm leading the charge and I'm the chief of all the Indians and I'm bummed out, you know, or dragging, that's going to bleed over to everybody. So it's equally important that I lead the charge with that kind of energy too.
That's fabulous. That's great advice. Do you work with a lot of crew? I mean, do you have an assistant? Do
Yeah.
you work by yourself a lot, or what?
I try to work with an assistant, and I've got a great assistant I've been working with a couple years here, and it's really helpful because it just makes that flow go a lot easier again. You know, rather than having to set up a stand with the reflector, he can hold it and we can transition really quickly. So if you say, oh, I like that, and the subject moves, he's reading with me, he's moving with me and kind of filling things in. And they don't even need to be extremely trained. So I mean, people listening, you don't have to be like, oh, I can't take these photos because I don't have a first assistant. Yeah. My biggest joke is you can go to like Westcott and get a reflector holder or something like that for a couple bucks, and it's essentially works the same. It's not going to be as fluid as a human.
It's not going to be as fast,
yeah.
You know, but you're absolutely right.
Don't do the same thing. Yeah,
absolutely.
So you don't need a crew. I try to keep my crew minimal because, again, when you're on set, this people's energy and disposition bleeds over into the shoot and the overall feel of the whole production. So I only surround myself with good people and work with good people. And one of the biggest compliments when I leave set is people are like, oh man, your assistant was so nice, or oh, I loved working with so-and-so. And that to me is as great as hearing, oh, I love the images. Because they haven't seen the photos yet, but the image in their mind of our photo shoot is very positive.
Well, it's that journey becomes a positive experience for them, and then the images just look better.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Absolutely.
Then they're reading the positivity into the photo, and they're like, wow, okay, cool.
Yeah, they're sold before you ever see the images.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So it sounds like your process is a little more organic. You're moving and you're shooting, and is that the way it works for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Talk about your style evolving. Where do you see it going? What do you see as the next step for you in photography?
Style? Okay. It's been an evolution. And you know what? It's sad to say that it was an equipment-driven evolution for a long time. Like most photographers, we get into it and we see a photo that we like and we want to take, and we feel we can't because we don't have the equipment. We shackle ourselves right off the bat. And I was as guilty as that as anyone else because I didn't have someone say to me, no, idiot, it's you. It's not the light, you know? So I progressed my style, and it became very technical and controlled and very well lit and heavily lit sometimes because I was working and getting more lights, and I could. So now I'm at a stage where the last couple of years I'm realizing how much you can do with less. So I'm becoming better at my equipment, being more versatile with certain pieces of equipment, paring down my equipment a lot, and now going for a different kind of client. This is a great time to do an interview because I just sat down with a rep and am now putting together a new portfolio. And it's amazing the feedback I'm getting from these high-end clients in these meetings. They're all going towards my more natural, more genuine imagery. Have nothing to do with the lighting or the technique. They'll go over the images that I'm technically proud of, and they'll go for something that was lit by like really muddy light coming in underneath a ledge of some girl sitting in front of a hammock or something like that. You know, it's like you can't, it's nothing that I would have ever put together in a lighting tutorial, but that's the stuff the clients gravitate to. So it's been an evolution for sure. It was a bell curve. I went all the way up and was like, I want to be like a Dan Winters, one of the most technically proficient lighting photographers in portraiture ever. And then it's come back down, and I realized that my passion always was the people and their lifestyle, and it doesn't need to be overly lit for that to come through.
Well, that's where we're at in photography right now. It's this very natural, organic look. It really is. So that won't last forever.
Yeah, I know. I'll have to go back and bring all the lights and blow them off.
Absolutely.
But I mean, technically, I was a big speed light shooter for a long time, and I still am because it's really lightweight. And now I do a lot more action and active sports and stuff. So I've invested in like the fancy Broncolor Move pack with the fast light and the flash durations and stuff. So I have the tools for the jobs when it comes to it. I've got the speed lights to add light to improve an image when I need mobility, and then I have the powerful action freezing stuff for when I really do need that pop. So it's tools for the job.
I find it interesting always because it seems like clients will, well, I love your really, this kind of really natural look feeling, but okay, we're going to shoot in this, absolutely black barn in the middle of the night, and we want to get something. They're going, well, that's not
this.
No, you don't get there on that road.
Yeah,
it's just a different journey.
And then I'm like, so what's your budget? Because I can do that, but it's going to cost us some lights. Yeah,
absolutely. So it's just that's the thing between being a professional photographer and an amateur, and that is you just have to make things happen a lot of times when you're there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They look at, like you said, they look in the portfolio and they're like, we love that. Now do that here.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay.
Yeah. Do you any video? Do you shoot video at all?
Yeah, so I don't have a reel online, but current clients know that it's something I offer and they ask for it. I've shot a statewide TV commercial, I've shot engagement videos, I mean the whole gamut. Behind the scenes is a big thing too. Clients now want to have behind the scenes to kind of show the process, which has become really big.
Do you charge for that?
That, yeah, you do charge for, absolutely, because I've got a video guy, I've got editing, that's just like any other service, and they're using it to advertise or market or promote at the same time. So it's definitely, that's a product for sure.
Where are those usually used, the behind the scenes? If a client asks you to do one of those for a shoot, how are they going to use it?
Oh, their website and their blog, and now they want it kind of like chopped up in like segments for Instagram and quick burst social kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's not like these big running, beautiful, long, flowy things anymore. They just want kind of...
Give me 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk craft. Let's just get down to the bell curve you're talking about, all the equipment. So what platform do you shoot on? What's your...
Oh no, you're not making me go there.
Yep, making you go there.
Okay, so right now I have Nikon cameras and I'm using all Tamron lenses. And Nikon was, when I went digital with Nikon, and I did that because they were the only ones that had their little pop-up flash that could command an off-camera flash. Okay. So when I started, I was like, I want to start learning light. You know, I want to get better at this. These speed lights are amazing. Like, I don't have to bring a car battery and an inverter in a case and drag that down the beach to power a strobe. I can do it with a speed light. But of course, Pocket Wizards were $200-something at the time. They were the plus twos. And I was like, I just can't afford the speed lights and the Pocket Wizards and everything. So I was looking at cameras and I was like, what? This is a CLS system. The pop-up flash will communicate wirelessly. And that's what made me go through Nikon. It wasn't fancy branding. It wasn't some heroic Nikon ambassador photographer. It was the fact that they had this really cool function that fit my need.
Just worked for how you work.
Exactly, yeah. And since then, you know, I've stuck with the system because I invested in the lenses, and then I've jumped over to Tamron lenses because they were doing a great job of innovating on that front. So the 24-70 is a workhorse lens for me. I have to shoot a lot of events still, indoors in low light sometimes for environmental work, and having the vibration compensation rocked. So I actually got my hands on one and got to shoot with it for a little while, and you know, wasn't instantly sold, and then had to shoot them side by side with my Nikon, and then I was like, I can't tell anymore which one's which, but I know I can shoot slower with this one, and it's cheaper, and it's lighter. Okay, sold. And then since then, the transition has just been, because the lenses keep coming out, and they just launched 2 of my new favorite primes. So
yeah, that was a fabulous piece of news, actually.
Yes, the 35mm prime is my favorite focal length of all time. To have one of those, I was like, amazing. Yeah. So.
Well, yeah, and that's going to progress. There'll be more lenses coming, more primes coming, and you know that's going to be a set that'll eventually kind of fill itself out.
Oh, yeah. I cannot wait. It should be cool.
Yeah, it's great. So, speed lights and Nikon equipment and...
Tamron lenses. Broncolor strobes. It's the whole gamut.
Broncolor strobe was like, when I started, Broncolor was like, if you could sell your house and 3 of your children, you get to buy a Broncolor pack.
Yeah, you know, that's still, I think, the thought process. The Ceros are kind of cool, though. They have, like, a lot of the tech. That's their new, like, monolight. They have a lot of the tech. They've got all the color accuracy, which is huge, because I'm in New York, and I still shoot a lot of catalog and a lot of e-com work. So if I'm shooting, like, pastels and neons and stuff, and my color temperature is changing, I had a client come back to me once because they had like a peach and a fuchsia and like these really thin kind of like overshirts that were like these neon bright colors. And I'm not going to blast a brand, but I was shooting really cheap, affordable strobes that all of us have in our garage, or, you know, we all know what they are. And the color temperature shifts wildly, like hundreds of degrees Kelvin. And they came back to me and they're like, our web person can't write the descriptions for these files because the images you gave us for our website, they can't tell the color difference. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I get out of this, you know? And that's when it really hit home that, you know, it doesn't really matter so much for a portrait, but when I'm shooting color critical stuff, all of a sudden you realize why this technology is paid for. And that's when I started looking to invest in it.
Well, you can't beat that platform for color.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fabulous.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
So the new monolights are more affordable than some of the older massive pack systems that you'd see from Broncolor, and they still have a lot of the tech, so they've got the great color accuracy and speed. And that's what I've kind of migrated over to, is a bunch of those and then a move pack to go on location when I need it.
So let's talk about business. This is really an area that is very interesting to me because for me, when I started out, no one wanted to talk about business. You know, I joined APA very early on, and it was a place where people would finally start to talk about business, and you had some sense of what is everybody doing. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and the first one is, how do you get clients? Where do they come from? How does that happen for you?
The sky. Storks.
I know.
Storks bring them.
Drop them in.
They drop in.
It's so nice.
It's word of mouth, honestly. if you're working and shooting and you're doing a good job by that, I have a lot of repeat clients, and most of my business comes from my contacts at a certain client or company. My clients are my people, honestly, because they'll leave and go to another company and they'll bring me in. And that's how I've made it in New York. I came in New York and I was doing part-time between here and Detroit, and I came into New York and I was hustling. Like, I was shooting everything for nothing for everything all the time, and people I've kept working with them, and as they go to different companies and as they grow, you come along. So I've really expanded that way just through word of mouth and through great relationships, because the turnover at a 9 to 5 happens, but I'm always Erik Valind Photography. So as long as I'm doing right by me and my brand, they're going to recognize that. And when they go to a new company, they'll bring me along. So yeah, word of mouth and long-term relationships has been the massive part of it. I'm just starting over with a new marketing thing because I'm looking for new clients. You always want to grow and change. So now I'm looking into mailing campaigns and direct emails and lists and all the stereotypical things you hear from commercial photographers. But the reality is I'm living in New York and paying bills and working because of relationships.
Yeah. So just so people have a sense of the reality of the business, I mean, how many days a week do you shoot? Or a month? Or, give us a sense of...
Depends on the month.
It certainly does, but
So work shooting? Maybe a week a month I'll be work shooting. It really isn't a lot of shooting time. And normally I'll try to do full days and fit in as much as possible, because once you start extending days, the budget grows infinitely, exponentially. So that's why it's so few days, because you try to get as much work done as possible.
Well, and the client wants as much done as possible.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
The budgets are only a certain amount of money, and very controlled.
To be understanding of that budget, then you have to try to cram a lot in to one day. Yeah. But as far as shooting wise, I'll shoot a ton, because I need to constantly be creating. I need to constantly be working on stuff. I want to be testing. I want to be creating content for other fields, like the photography industry and educational fields and stuff. And because I just love to shoot. But it's sad how much time you actually spend in front of the computer. How much is editing? If you shoot for a day of video, you have 2 days or 3 days of editing, they say. Well, it's like, man, if I shoot for a week during the month, the post-production and the invoicing, the pre-production, that nightmare is going to be my other 3 weeks, easily.
Yeah.
So that's the reality of it.
So do you have a rep? Have you had that experience? Or?
No, I haven't had that experience yet. So okay. I'm kind of towing that line. I had meetings with reps and stuff this week, because they had a bunch of meetings here at PPE, which was cool. But it's not somewhere I need to go yet necessarily. You'll know when you need a rep, because you'll be bidding on jobs and you won't get them, or you won't be invited to bid on a job because everyone else is repped. So I think that's the point. I have this conversation a lot. People are like, well, you don't have a rep. Should I get a rep? And I'm like, you'll know when you need a rep. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always fascinating to me. My sense of it is that you get a rep when you don't feel like you actually need the rep, but
that's
you
what they
have
say.
to have the rep, because it kind of moves you to another level of work. And they don't want you until they think, oh, well, I can make money on this person, which
absolutely.
means you're already making money.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
They want to see that
but
book of business, and then they'll get you to that last level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's their relationships.
Yeah, you're buying into their relationships.
Exactly.
Absolutely, and they want to be able to trust you and know that you can work on set and that things are going to work out. So.
Yeah.
So do you do all your own estimating? And invoicing and billing and that whole process? Talk about that process.
Okay, painful learning.
Everyone has this story.
Yeah. So BlinkBid saved my life. If I have to sit up here and without taking a cent from them ever, get BlinkBid. This is not sponsored, paid, marketed. Literally, it's this piece of software that costs a couple $100 and you're like, oh, I can't afford it. And then you look at it and you're like, oh my God, it has every single thing that I need line item to help me build usage, and does it in legalese, and has invoicing terms and overage terms, and everything's built out. And I just put a price on it. So it helps you make professional looking invoices, and it guides you with recommendations on what to be charging for usage. So it takes you from a guy who's using a template on Word trying to make an invoice to someone who is building out intricate line item, detailed legalese, usage agreements and estimates. And it just, overnight, it makes you look a million times more professional. Even if you have no idea what numbers you're plugging into it, it makes you look better. But it also starts getting you in that mindset where it's like, oh, there's a line for taxi. Or gas. Oh yeah, so wow, gas adds up after the end of the year.
Oh,
that's
absolutely.
A lot of money. Yeah. I should
and
be charging for that every
in
job.
New York.
Oh yeah. So it's like, oh, you see all these things you should be charging for that maybe you just never thought to plug into your Word document or your Excel spreadsheet, So that was huge for me. That was really helpful.
Does that integrate? Does BlinkBid integrate with QuickBooks or
It does
Xero?
now.
It
Yeah.
does now.
So I use QuickBooks Online because most of the invoicing or bidding I'm doing or stuff I'm going to be on the road. So I like to be able to access it. I use Chase for all my business accounts and credit cards, and that syncs seamlessly. And then in BlinkBid, I can export all my finances. So some things I might do directly and make invoices through QuickBooks. Other things like bigger jobs with this intricate estimates and bids and things, that's going to be in BlinkBid, and then I export and import that file into QuickBooks. So at
Do you
the
do
end
that
of the day,
weekly, monthly? I mean, you're exporting, importing files.
you know,
for
I
your
think I
business?
do it quarterly.
Do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
when you're supposed to be filing the taxes quarterly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's about when it gets about when it gets imported. You know, it's one of those things that it falls away. No one likes to do it. I used to tell myself every Monday I need to like balance my checkbook. I need to do my accounts receivable, follow up on invoices that are overdue. You know, all those things that keep you in business with an apartment or a home.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and reality is Monday comes and you're shooting, Monday comes and you're traveling, Monday comes and you're prepping, and it's just like it goes the wayside. But that's one of the hardest things is going from photographer to professional photographer. It's not how good you are, it's how you're able to keep your head above water some days. So many talented amateurs and so many crappy professionals, but they're just better at getting their invoices out on time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've always said if you're a photographer who's consistent, even a not good photographer who's consistent will have work.
Oh, absolutely.
You
Yeah.
know, an inconsistent photographer, it's just no one knows what to expect, you know. And the business is a part of that. They want to feel like this is a professional relationship. He's going to invoice me, he's going to charge me and bill me what he said, you know, he or she said. So it's just that whole process. So you like QuickBooks Online? Because I've heard some things about it that people don't love it, and I haven't made that jump yet. I've been wondering about it. But.
So it seems oversimplified, which is why I think a lot of people get turned off by it right away. But I mean, I look at QuickBooks and I'm like, I'm not an accountant or a CPA. I don't need 99% of the things. So I feel like QuickBooks Online might have less features, and it trims a lot of the fat in things that we don't necessarily need as small business owners. I mean, I'm not a wedding photographer, so I don't have products or inventory and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So for basic bookkeeping and things, it's wonderful. It's affordable. If you get an accountant, you know, obviously they know their way around it, and you can just give them a login access, which is super convenient. So I just started working with an accountant this last year, and it's just really easy to get them involved and kind of get them into it.
That's
so
fabulous.
yeah, it's been a good transition. But I would start looking at an accountant, even like a one-time basis or something like that, to get you straight or to give you recommendations on how to do your books, and then look at a simple service like FreshBooks or QuickBooks to give you constant access so you don't have that excuse. Be like, oh, I'm not at my desk. Well, pull up your iPhone because they have an app and put that invoice in there. Yeah.
So see, I'm an accountant that does all my stuff, you know, quarterly, but I have a person that just comes in weekly to write out checks, and I still write out checks, but anyway, that's a whole nother story. So talk about how you show your work now. What's the business of showing work these days? I mean, how are you seeing what are the trends? What are the things you're seeing?
Your website.
Website?
Yeah.
Still that? No printed books, no...
I've never
Send
had
me a CD. Like, what's a CD? You know?
Right? No computer that anyone has right now has a CD drive,
No,
it seems.
no way.
Yeah. It's your website. It's still very difficult to get a meeting because no one has time. You know, their email boxes are getting blown up. They've got print promos coming in all the time. If they want to see your work, they're not going to go through the time of a phone call and a schedule and to bring you in and to look at your stuff and, you know, pat you on the back. Yeah, you're great, and then send you home kind of thing. They're going to look at your website and be like, okay, make a mental note. And then if they have you for a job, then they're going to want to bring you in and be like, okay, let's look at more of your work and talk to you and maybe get your creative input.
In that next meeting, how do you present your work in that meeting?
With an iPad.
With an iPad? So
See,
you're going to show it on an iPad?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's because I build custom portfolios for the client and for what I'm going in for. So I show one thing online because that's who I want to be and what kind of work I want to get. But you know, if I'm going to go in and like I shot the Etsy lookbook, so I mean that's like 154 products that had to be burned out in 22 hours straight, you know, and with a 48-hour turnover after they were cut, clipped, masked, and you know delivered to the printer, kind of thing. You're not going to find product on my website, but I'm a darn good product photographer, and I'll get it to you quick.
Yeah.
So it's that's why I do it that way, because the iPad gives me the flexibility rather than having to find like the pre-scored paper and print it all out and put together the book and race down. You know, I can just dump a new portfolio and enable it on my iPad and show it. And bring another iPad, you know, or get a phone and hand out a phone and an iPad if there's multiple people there. So.
Well, that's fabulous. I mean, that's been my sense. I mean, it's still websites, that's what sells you. But talk about how you said print materials and things. Are you doing that kind of advertising? What kind of advertising are you doing?
I'm not doing any, or haven't been doing any
Oh, really?
advertising. Yeah, so it's been very fortunate. The only reason I'm really jumping in is because I'm starting to aim for a different kind of client, someone that doesn't have the familiarity with me, so I don't have that referral base built already. So now I'm looking traditional routes. I'm looking at lists of who the art buyers and people are, what agencies have what accounts, email blasts, and then promos and follow-ups, either quarterly to dream clients or to people who click through to my website.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Any social media tips, thoughts you have? I mean, sometimes you bump into people that are just doing amazing things. You know?
Be active.
Yeah.
I try to be really transparent too, and active. The biggest thing is don't be negative. No one likes an overly negative or overly political or argumentative person.
Yeah.
They don't like them in person. They don't like them on social media. Social media should be you. And after having a conversation with someone or being with a friend, you're going to be a little more open. So, I mean, I share behind the scenes photos, thoughts on things, links that are helpful, repost other people's stuff. It's not just a me thing. If someone else posts something cool or good work, be like, hey, that's an awesome photo. Or, oh, check out this thing so-and-so did, It's neat. It's a community. So communities don't survive on people just taking or people just pimping their work.
Do you charge usage fees?
Absolutely, yeah.
So talk about that for you and your work.
Okay, so most of my work is commercial, so they're going to pay to use it. So, and then that also helps you when you're charging. So it's like, well, what do you charge? What's your day rate? Well, it doesn't matter what my day rate is. How are you going to use the darn thing? You're going to put it on a billboard or in a trifold or in a store, and then you kind of charge usage depending on how they use it. And it's a really easy sell because most of the people that buy it are expecting the usage rates. And for the people like small or medium businesses you're new to, just be like, hey, I want to make this the most cost efficient for you. Why pay for things you're not going to use? Why don't you tell me specifically what you're going to use it for? And then I'll only charge you and price it out for that. That way you get the best value and I know where this work's going.
That's fabulous. So if someone comes back and says, okay, you shot this for a billboard for me, but now I want to put it in a print ad. Mm-hmm. How do you handle that? Is it a percentage of your original fee? Is it a whole new?
I would do it like I would an original quote. So if they were coming to me for a print ad, I would just base it off of that. And I mean, that's based off of experience, realistically what clients' budgets are, because a billboard to one client might be breaking the bank. A billboard to another client might be a drop in a hat. So that matters a lot what their budget is. But no, I don't do the percentage scale for usage. I'm someone that just kind of finds a value for it based off of the specific client. So I'm able to still tailor those because I do it all myself.
Talk about your business setup. Are you a sole proprietor? Are you an LLC? Are you an S Corp?
So I'm a sole proprietor, and I can get away because my name is in the title, so it's really easy to do. Simple, quick, cheap registration here in New York. And I do that because I don't own a car anymore. When I moved to New York, I sold my car. I don't own a home. I have an apartment that is the price of most people's homes times 10, and it's a shoebox. But that's the reality of it. It's a very rent and mobile environment in New York, and I don't feel I need any kind of extra protection because I don't own a home or a car right now. If I lived in Florida, I would be incorporated for sure.
So I was a sole proprietor forever. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until my accountant said, hey, if you become an S Corp, you don't have to charge self-employment tax on, if you make $150,000, we can say, well, it's a reasonable fee, a reasonable salary to run your business for $50,000. Now you have $100,000 you don't have to pay self-employment tax on. So it saved me a ton of money. So if you're wondering about S Corp versus sole proprietor, talk to your accountant, figure that out. But it's a question you should definitely ask. Don't let that go unaddressed. So there you go.
Awesome.
So
I'll definitely check that out.
Yeah. All right. So do you sell stock?
I don't.
Okay.
All my stuff is so people-based. I know that a lot of the lifestyle imagery there'd be a demand for it, but it's just not something I've had the time or the interest in.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. It's a whole other thing. It takes a ton of work. Yeah. So what are some of the ways you make money in photography?
Well, the first is going to be your assignment work. So it's like you're getting paid for the day rate to work, or I call it a creative fee, and then you're getting paid for the usage. And then you have relicensing of that. And then I do a bunch of different stuff. So a lot of times I'll do writing based on my photography because I was a writer, I think, before a photographer. So you can write things to accompany your photos, and if you pitch that to people, they're like, wow, this is the whole package. I don't have to put something on this, so it's easier to do that too. So yeah, the main ones are going to be your rates, like for your time, and then the usage is going to be the volume of my income. And then you've got some event photography and things like that I still do. So I work with a lot of PR companies in town. So yeah, you do event coverage. And that's going to be a flat hourly. You're not charging usage for that kind of stuff. Yeah.
It's great to hear. I mean, most people think, oh, well, you just get to this point where you do this one thing, and it's just not the way the business is run.
No.
It's not at all. So, Do you do spec images for people? I mean, do you ever say, oh, I'll shoot this thing for this person even though I don't have any budget because I know it's going to get me work later, or I'll shoot something on spec and send it to somebody, anything like that?
I don't shoot spec in that regard. I mean, I shoot things that I know would appeal to a client, and then I'll use them as portfolio stuff and try to approach them. Especially in today's social atmosphere, shooting on spec is just a great way for them to get free Instagram images, pretend they didn't know about copyright, and then never pay you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I deal with models and athletes all the time, and they're like, oh, this brand reached out to me and are going to send me like 16 yoga outfits and stuff, and they're like, all you need to do is send us a couple pictures back for our Instagram. And she's like, we've worked together and I love your photographs, can we shoot this? And I'm like, oh, so you're a very expensive model and I'm a very expensive photographer, and here's this brand with a budget wants us to do our jobs for free, to give you a dress for their, then it does not compute.
Yeah.
And you know, younger photographers are like, heck yes. And younger models are like, free clothes. And everyone thinks this is a great deal, but it's not. These are companies with marketing budgets, with money to be spent for this. And basically they're exploiting people's vanity and I guess ignorance of the industry to get free marketing material. So I try to stay away from that in that regard. Yeah.
Well, it's like free things. I mean, it's like, oh, it's free. It's a free outfit. It's a free, you know, it's like, in the end, it's not free at all.
No, yeah.
So.
There's strings attached, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I stay away from that because I deal with lifestyle and apparel companies and stuff. And, you know, they have, everyone's trying to make their marketing money work and trying to be relevant and trying to establish a brand around their clothes, which is the goal. I just believe it should be paid for if you're having professional talent, professional photographers and videographers, and our time involved, and it's all worth money. Yeah. So I stay away from it because it's a very slippery slope, and it doesn't start a good relationship with a lot of those clients because you're dealing with a different arm of that company or agency as well, usually.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. All right. So tell me about, to you, what does it mean to arrive?
I'll tell you when I get there. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. No. It's,
I mean, is there anything like, well, if I was shooting all the stuff for some brand, you know, I feel like I've arrived. Or, I mean, maybe there isn't something. There's certainly goals, but what are your goals?
There are goals. Yeah. Okay. So that's a very tough question. I just passed 30. I had some goals and personal ones, and marked them off the list, and I felt no more fulfilled at 30 after marking any of them off than I do today or before I marked them off. So it's like we were talking about clients and style, it's always a moving mark. Success is constantly going to be a moving mark. And weird as it sounds, I think to be a successful person, you always have to have that elusive sense of success, because then there's always got to be something to drive you and motivate you. I don't know. I put things like a to-do list. I want to shoot an active lifestyle campaign for someone like Nike or REI and have it go like an international campaign. You always want something like that. You have to throw those goals out there, and it'll happen. But it's the process of achieving them and the process and enjoying what you're doing that's the most rewarding. I wake up some days and I'm like, oh my God, this is my living. Like I posted on Instagram today, I was like, I never want to grow up because of what we were doing, shooting and teaching and stuff yesterday. Yeah. And as long as I have that feeling, I think that's success. So.
Well, that makes sense. It is very elusive. Everyone thinks there's a point, but that point moves all the time.
Yeah.
So anything you would have done different in this startup? And this kind of leads into my next question, which is, what advice would you give to young photographers who are starting? So kind of those two together. What would you have done different? And with that, what advice would you give to a young photographer who's getting started?
What I've done different? I would have been more proactive in reaching out to maybe find a mentor or someone to work with. I look back and I see the route I took, and the only thing I ever missed was having like this father figure in the industry kind of thing, and photographers were lone wolves and artists or whatever you want to, stereotype us as. But I think it would have been cool if I had known that this is what I wanted to do. I should have spent more time to go out and find someone to mentor me. The learning curve would have been much faster. It doesn't mean I would have listened to the advice, but I would have had the advice, which would have been neat. And I think that's a neat relationship I see working with my assistants and people and seeing in other photographers. And it's just a cool relationship that I don't think I've had to fully experience. And now I don't think I ever will at this point. So it's like, it's not a regret, but it's like it would have been cool to have. Nice. Yeah.
Did you assist at all? Did you assist to that?
God, like 3 times maybe. Yeah.
So basically, no.
No, yeah. No, I didn't really assist. I came up to New York on a trip and was like starry-eyed and was like, oh, okay, this is how you be a commercial photographer. You come and assist and you put that in for years and then they'll hand you work and then you'll be in and the doors will open. You know, Valhalla, yes, I've made it. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
I came up from Florida where it's hot, so you wear white t-shirts all the time. Walked onto set and we were doing product photography for like Oprah magazine and it was a very reflective balloon they were photographing with hand models who I couldn't believe how much they were getting paid to stick their hand in a photo. And my white shirt was a spectral highlight on the balloon. The photographer saw it and just blasted me in front of everyone off set, like sent me home. I came back, I spent the next day or 2 just painting Sykes after everyone was gone and taking trash out and swapping bathrooms, and I was like, that was miserable. I'm gonna do this on my own, you know, not happening. And you know, that's the reality. You have to work hard. I'm not against working hard. It was just a bad experience with I wasn't desensitized to the New York, and this guy was old New York sometimes, so yeah, it was very abrasive. And I was like, that's not how I want to be on set. That's not how I want to be remembered. That's not how I want to make people feel. And I would never act that way in front of a client of my own. So it's like, I'm out. I'll do this my own way. So
no assisting.
No assisting.
Well, you've done great. Absolutely. So in part of that advice, would you advise people to assist?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So just because I had one bad instance and was able to make my own way, you know, you can't, they have trailblazers and all these names for people. It's like you have to make your own way. Yeah. Assisting wasn't the way I made it, but assisting has invaluable experience, and that's in the whole maybe thing I would have done differently. I would have loved to assist for people. Or I would have loved to really find a photographer who I liked his work, or maybe I just liked how he worked with people. Maybe I didn't even have to identify with his style, but you know, he handled people well and it was a neat experience. So yeah, assisting's awesome. Yeah. Because you get to see how they interact with clients, you get to see behind the curtain. Nowadays we have all this lighting information, so you don't have to leave your computer and you can master lighting, it seems. But the business side, like you said, is still very elusive. People are don't want to open up to that. And then the bedside manner, how you deal with clients, how you approach things, how you market, how you handle yourself in stressful situations, those are invaluable people skills that you can get elsewhere, but to see it in the context of the industry you want to go into. So yeah, assist. Reach out to people you admire for more reasons than their work. Because you might find the guy whose work you relate with is a total jerk, and you'll be like me, turned off to the experience, and then you'll miss out on that experience. Yeah. So.
But if you couldn't have been a photographer and you had to do something else, what would it have been?
I'd be a writer. I mean, that's
oh, come
always
on.
Been a...
Your parents are going to go, what, you can't be a doctor? You can't be straight. I'll be a photographer. I'll be a writer.
I think I'll
do poetry. Yeah. It's going to get any better?
So, well, photography was, it was like a happy accident. It's something that I did because I wanted to share experiences with people. And visually, you can do that so easily and quickly. Be like, look at that, cool, huh? Like, that's the neat thing about photography is you can share that experience right away. Yeah. And I think it's essentially the same thing as a writer. You're sharing that same experience, you just do it in a different way. You can do it in a multi-sensory kind of way. If you're like a writer who can make you feel, taste, smell things, I mean, it's just as impactful as a great writer as a good photographer. So yeah, hands down. Like, I can't paint or draw very well, so I migrated to photography because I wanted to visually share. And if you took away my eyesight, then I would write. So you're a creative guy all the way through, there's no doubt. Yeah. You know, you did a smart thing, I have to say, because I've done these kind of biographical interviews for video of doctors and dentists and heart surgeons, I mean, just the gamut. Mm-hmm. And almost every single one of them, when I ask them any questions about business, say, I should have been a business major before I started my... I should have been a business major before I started, you know, every single one of them, because they all end up running businesses and they don't have any symptoms. So you have the right path. Well, I don't know if there is a right path, but your path works. Helpful. Absolutely. You got that business background, and then you go into business, you know, so, all right. Cool. So if you had taken a business class, would they have told you, would photography have specced out? Yeah, right. No, when you do like your cost of business analysis and you do your business plan, I wouldn't have gotten the loan or recommendation from my professors for sure. So this has been JP Morgan with Erik Valind. A fabulous interview to be able to hear kind of his journey and what makes him tick. And I hope you've enjoyed what he's had to say and enjoy his imagery, because it's been certainly enjoyable for me. So keep those cameras rolling, keep on clicking. It's a new year and a new giveaway. We've got 4 prizes for 4 lucky individuals. We've got 3 of the business coaching classes, and we've got a great light blaster from the folks over at DIY Photography. Go to theslantlens.com, check it out.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Slanted Lens. Like us on Facebook. Tell your mother about us. Tell your mother's mother about us. This is too stupid.